2020 aus weltweiter Sicht von der Unit 42. Das ist ein Research-Team, das Aktivitäten im Cyberspace anschaut und analysiert. Und wir haben dazu den John Harrison hier, also ein Security-Evangelist, der sitzt jetzt bei Palo Alto Networks in Amsterdam, ursprünglich in Amerika und ist hier an vorderster Front dabei. It's a great pleasure for us to welcome John Harrison at Vienna at our Expert Forum.
Vielen Dank.
And I hope you have some very interesting information for us.
I hope so also. Alright, vielen Dank. Ich heiße John Harrison. Ich bin mit Palo Alto Networks vor 6,5 Jahren. Ich will mit the presentation in English, okay. So, but like I said, I worked for Palo Alto Networks, creating the products, also running part of Unit 42. So what I want to do is share some of the latest threats, because I moved over here to get closer to you and help you understand what's going on in EMEA, both from kind of what's going on. So if you're not familiar with Unit 42, is our threat research team. So we take all the information out there, we're looking at threats, we're trying to provide you the information about the different adversaries, about different open source indicators, and we provide this information free for you. How many of you are reading the blog post today from Unit 42? It really is a fantastic source of information. So up there in the top right corner, unit42.paloaltonetworks.com. Some of the things that I've covered here will be up there, but we've got a really wide range of threat research that's out there, and I think that's one of the things that's very different about Palo Alto Networks. We want to share with you so that you can help protect yourselves and really understand what the adversaries are doing. So the idea here is I'm providing you situational awareness. You need to understand what adversaries are doing, because every day the threat landscape is changing. And so the attack vectors are changing, and your security posture really needs to change as well. So that's really my focus of sharing some of the things to you today. So a lot of great updates. Check that out. This is what you're up against every single day. This is just a few of the highlights from 2019. And the adversaries sit there between 9 o'clock and 5 o'clock every single day trying to figure out how to get inside either your company or other companies, and that's their focus. They have research and development, they have quality assurance, they have sales to see who can be the baddest hacker that's out there. And that's what they're doing, is developing tools, just like you may have development for applications internal. Many of the teams are using automation and things to attempt to get inside your organization. One of the things I did not think I'd be saying, that here in 2020, that ransomware is still an issue. Does anyone want to raise their hand that has had a ransomware issue in the last year? Yeah. And again, it's because the adversaries continue, they're persistent, they want to be able to do that, but it's also the financial capabilities and the financial rewards with which they're getting. More and more and more malicious programs every day that we're seeing. And that's part of where it used to be just one person behind a keyboard creating a piece of malware custom for you, but now they use toolkits and bits of code and dynamically generating. And what you'll hear is, much like you'll see an advertising campaign on television or in the newspaper, they're using attack campaigns and changing tactics to see who they can trick to open up the email or open the attachment and get you to take a look at these. If we take a look at one sample in just minutes, this campaign can translate into 45,000 instances of a single piece of malware. That's how fast this changes. And so your security protection and posture absolutely has to change on top of that. Breaches are an unfortunate issue, and we don't want any customer to ever be on this list. And the one thing I'll tell you, you don't just buy Palo Alto Networks and you're magically protected. It's really about having the right partner. It's really about having the right products. It's really about having the right people. It's about having the right process. It's having those properly configured things. But it really focuses around, because you don't have an infinite amount of resources, people not just flowing in euros and dollars, it's about being efficient. It's about being simple. It's about leveraging automation, being able to put all these things together. And so that's one of the things. So I'm going to highlight some of these things that were actually part of individual breaches. And again, the successful attacks keep coming. I mentioned the financial aspects of this, and that's what's driving a lot of that. So we'll talk about some of the specific threat vectors. All right, sounds good? I'll move over to file-based malware. A lot of the breaches and infections starts with a file. So it's really understanding kind of what's changed with regards to files that are coming in there. And so if we take a look at the file types, everything from Microsoft Office documents. It used to be just executables, but now it could actually be a script or a DLL or an Office document or even a PDF. And so understanding how they're coming in, as many of us have mail security, executables don't come in emails. So how come there's executables up on that list? And so if we take a look at some of the protocols and transports from email, SMBv3, why is that up there? And so POP, web browsing, FTP, the attackers are nesting and putting together different channels to then deliver so many different things. If we think of RTF files, the Microsoft Word, the RTF vulnerabilities, that all it takes is an RTF vulnerability to be exploited and the adversaries here inside of your company. So I'm going to walk through a specific example. How many of you have heard of Emotet? Yeah, it continues to be an ongoing thing. And it used to start, the US CERT actually put out a statement, continues to be the most costly and destructive malware affecting the private and public sectors. So it really started as a banking Trojan, but really what it is a common delivery mechanism that delivers a lot of things. So you may see TrickBot, you may see Ryuk, you may see various other ransomware families that kind of co-deliver and kind of come through that. So I'm going to walk through some of the trajectories as it's polymorphic, some of the command and control, how that communicates, and then what you can do to protect against that. So let's take a look at Emotet that starts with, let's say, a Microsoft Office document with embedded macros. Someone may click on the macro. It may reach out to a variety of compromised URLs. You'll then bring in an executable, exploitation, lateral movement, command and control, SSL. The adversary's in. So let's walk through, that's kind of bubbles and diagrams. I like looking at actual real examples. So this is an actual Emotet infection with TrickBot. It started off with an email, and inside is the PDF here at the bottom. Customer opens up the PDF, says, oh, I need to click on this link to see what's going on inside of the email. Inside this link, you probably can't see what's there. Let's go ahead and enlarge that. Anyone tell me what's interesting about that link? 8, yes?
WordPress included.
There's that, yeah. So it's a compromised website with yet another WordPress vulnerability that's been compromised, but it's being delivered over a secure connection. So Emotet, which is so well known by every single solution that's out there, is now going to be delivered from the encrypted, from the website through an encrypted connection directly to the endpoint. So here you have millions, yes?
Question, is this a defining feature of Emotet or just from this example?
From this example. So many other malware families are using either from Google Drive, AWS. Again, so it could either be a compromised website or other sites, because you can get Let's Encrypt certificates. The delivery from encrypted sites is just skyrocketing right and left. And this is one of the things that, as we're talking to customers, we ask them, are you doing SSL decryption? SSL TLS decryption? Yeah. And so here's a very basic example that should be stopped. And I should get rid of this.
Yes,
I'm getting compromised. From our IT, I will not be part of the MDM. From there, I've got now a Word document with a macro, and like a good user, I want to be able to view the content on the macro, so I'm going to enable that, and it's game over. But maybe this is ransomware and it's on just one system, so what are you going to do? You're going to come wipe my machine. No. This single infection, and this is what's changed with ransomware and exploiting then, say, MSRDP or Bluekeep vulnerabilities. Boom, 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 boom. And all of a sudden, it's just making connections, searching out, it's grabbing the directory from the information and starting to exploit system after system after system after system. And then you're having a really bad day. Not a funny thing. This is a reality that we're seeing inside our customers in concept, that their perimeter defenses are there. They said, I've got all this gear. They're not doing SSL decryption. They may not have solutions like Wildfire. Oh, the endpoint will get that. Well, ransomware or malware today is really good at being able to become polymorphic, or being able to, anyone know what FUD means? FUD, yeah?
Fear, uncertainty, doubt.
Exactly, that's one very good answer. The other is fully undetectable. So the adversary just takes it, runs it through a cryptor, makes it undetectable by any regular solutions that are out there. And so that's what we're seeing. It used to be a manual step, but now the adversaries have pretty much automated that. And that's where we see these campaigns that are very different every couple hours. And that's, or at least daily kind of thing. So both the malware and the package delivery to bypass the endpoint, the C2 infrastructure, using domain generation algorithms to change and have that communication. And this is one of the things, I'll talk about some of the different mitigation methods, but this is the thing that's really painful about this, is it shouldn't keep working. But because it's financially advantageous for the adversary, they keep doing this and they are successful. And that's why I want to be able to share things like this with you, is we all collectively have to do something different. It's not just Palo Alto Networks, it's not just the partner, it's not just you. This is a full education environment where it said, you know, it used to be don't open the executable from people you don't know. Now it's, you know, everything from be careful with the Office documents or Word documents or macros or JavaScript that may come in emails in different delivery mechanisms. These are a couple recent examples, so I just pulled these. Do any of you read malwaretrafficanalysis.net? Oh, there's one good soul out there. If you want something really cool to read every day, Brad Duncan does a blog post every single day on a variety of different malware that's out there. And so we'll take a look through and see kind of what's the delivery, how are things coming, what's all the C2 infrastructure, how are things changing. One day it's Word documents, the next thing it's Excel. All of a sudden, Emoted is with TrickBot, the next thing it's with UR-Sniff, the next day it's with with Ryuk, and so kind of understanding what's there. And so for your front, you know, for good daily research and things like that, it's kind of cool to stay up. So these are some of the examples that he pulled. What's the key word right there in the middle? The attachment? Can anyone in the front row read the attachment name? Invoice, Rechnung. Nice, lures. How many of us must pay the invoice? I have a sales order. I have, you know, the lures are very enticing these days that I've gotten to the point where I just don't open emails and attachments. It gets me in trouble sometimes. I don't know about you, but it's really challenging even for professionals to really know and understand what's going on. Here's another one in here, and so they'll include the password together within these, and these are some, you know, this is just from a couple weeks ago. So they'll try different things, and very much like kind of online advertising, they'll see what works. Hey, that one was a really good thing. Let's go ahead and try that again. And so that's kind of one of the things. Here's another one in here that had a variety of attachments. Sometimes it's zip, sometimes it's executable. I used autofocus, or a threat intelligence platform, to be able to take a look at payment. Each one of these are emoted and various banking trojans, thousands and thousands and thousands. So sometimes it's payment, sometimes it's invoice, sometimes it's resume, sometimes it's cryptic, things like that. Sometimes it's Rechnung. It really changes, but this is a way to kind of visualize it. So let's talk about some of the variety of ways. ransomware with the Palo Alto Network solution is absolutely a very easy problem when you leverage all the capabilities of the Palo Alto Network solution. I'm not going to say perfect. There's no perfect security solution that's out there. Again, we want to greatly reduce the risk so that no matter where it comes in with your environments. So if we take a look at that campaign, the first is file blocking. So there's a lot of times that file blocking, whether it's files with macros or executables. One of the examples I'll give is people in accounts payable that should be paying invoices. So let's say it was an executable. Is there reason any time in the history of your companies where someone in accounts payable should be able to download an executable?
Never.
Pretty much. And one of my favorite executables, my favorite executable type on a Windows machine, is a screensaver file. So we still see malware being generated that have screensaver files, .scr files, and on a Windows system, if you double click on an SCR file, runs just like an executable. And so there's a lot of capabilities. Was there a question? Within there. Compromised URLs. So the first thing was part of that delivery. If you're not doing SSL TLS decryption, you won't see the payload being coming down. But the other part is URL filtering together with wildfires. So either the Office document or the initial script would have been analyzed, and the URLs either would have been sent to wildfire and automatically distributed within minutes worldwide, or within URL filtering. And sometimes I'll talk to customers who go, we have your threat prevention solution, we have your wildfire, but we've got a blue coat or a semantic thing, so we don't need your URL filtering. But I think it's kind of the combination of how all these things work together that's really, really powerful, the way we do the URL filtering and then tying in with SSL decryption. You heard today around Cortex and wildfire, so the coordinated global blocking, both in the executable delivery and the exploit and installation. The Cortex XDR works very, very well in being able to do the analysis and being able to also to keeping a lot of the executables from Evian or the exploits from running or being able to be analyzed. And a lot of time wildfire is one of the things I like about wildfire is instead of just looking at the file, it's being able to actually run it in a variety of different environments because we need to see what the file must do. And from here, you have Cortex XDR, wildfire, threat prevention, and again, the SSL decryption. So a lot of times as we're talking about the perimeter, that example where I talked about it got in somehow, but being able to prevent it from spreading internally should be yet another part of your protection posture to make sure that in that case that it actually does come in, that it can't communicate. And we've seen in customer environments where they didn't have things set up, maybe it was just alerting only, or didn't have indications. They didn't have wildfire within the right places there. But this is ransomware and emoted. These are very simple things that are absolutely capable within the Palo Alto Networks platform. So these were some of the examples here. Wildfire that I talked about. Part of what you heard with Prisma Access and Cortex is you want that protection no matter where you are. If you're in a Starbucks or you're in an airport or you're here in a conference room, I want to connect in so that if I open an attachment that I get that scanning all the way, no matter where I am. So Prisma Access, Prisma Cloud. How many of you were at Ignite this past year? Yeah, so we did an example where we walked through, where we set up a fully deployed cloud instance together with the Jenkins vulnerability and then demonstrated why having wildfire as part of a cloud deployment is absolutely crucial as well. So it's really tied into each one of these things, having that capacity, automatic scaling as a cloud-delivered security service, and having the cross-platform file analysis for each one of these things. It's really how that works together, and you'll see more and more as we tie is wildfire is a key part of both the next generation firewall platform, but also part of Cortex and some of the things of XOR and how we're going with our threat intelligence platform that it really, really ties together. So file blocking, I think, is simply one of the biggest features that many customers aren't using. That example where you can write a simple rule to say people in accounts payable are not allowed to download executables. Well, you could also do, well, people in IT should maybe have a continue page to pop up. Be able to, start somewhere. Don't just say, well, I may lose my job if I prevent people from downloading executables because I'm not sure who. Let's take people in executive staff or the higher risk parts of the organization, be able to segment where you're actually starting to provide some of those guide rails and restrictions to be able to focus there. Threat prevention, focus on known vulnerabilities. So many Office documents really are known vulnerabilities. So whether it's RTF files for Word documents, whether it's other different types. So one of the things where I talked about, okay, that system was infected. When it sat there, starting to infect the others, it was exploiting a Bluekeep MSRDP vulnerability. And that's another great opportunity to, if you haven't rolled out patches, please roll out your Bluekeep MSRDP vulnerabilities today. But it's not always the easiest way to be fully patched and perfect. But being able to have the threat prevention capability to prevent known vulnerabilities from being exploited. So whether it's a Citrix vulnerability, whether it's a Bluekeep or an MSRPC vulnerability in SMB, or a SharePoint vulnerability. There's a recent post up there on our blog about a SharePoint vulnerability being exploited. So having those right kind of network threat prevention capabilities. So many campaigns have been seen by wildfire that we've already taken that quote unquote unknown file and already turned it into known. So you're actually being delivered protections by the time you you may come in the office in the morning. So that's one of the things of the power with so many people using the wildfire solution, and then Cortex really to put it all together. All right, any questions on that example? Okay. How many of you have heard of BEC? Okay, that's not good. Business email compromise. So this was a big enough thing that the FBI and the U.S. CERT put out an advisory about this, a $26 billion scam. And it really started with the 419 emails where you'd come in and all of a sudden it's like, you've won, I've got $5 million, help me get it out of this country. And you kind of sit there and you as security practitioners kind of look at it and go, who would ever fall for this thing? Yeah, they've kind of upped their game. And so they've really kind of evolved into things. And by the way, the EU CERT did put out an advisory on this back in January of last year. So hopefully more of you have heard about it. So let me, and it's I like the top line. It's overtaken ransomware is the main reason behind cyber claims. So again, the financial motivation of attackers. So let's walk through what this is. And again, because it's business email compromise, it's usually targeting the C-levels within your organization. And so somehow they've gotten access to one of your C-level executives, fully compromise the system, the mailbox. Why take over with ransomware and get a Bitcoin or two? They're going to sit there and watch all the communication between how the executives works with the admins, works with the finance person to know the full flow of the business for what's going on within their organization. They'll then possibly wait till victims on vacation, and then all of a sudden you'll get an email that says, this is urgent. So they're totally owned one system. They got in through, and they've dropped usually a remote access Trojan, fully got access to everything. And so you'll have, this is kind of the email, what it looks like to just drop a remote access Trojan. Dark Comet, Nanocore, 100 other remote access Trojans. Works just like go to my PC, except there's no user interface, and the bad guy has full control to do everything. Mimikatz, drop the credentials, get full access to the system. And then what they do is from the executive's email, and I'll read this. Can we have a wire transfer sent out today? I'm expecting to receive the account information for outgoing transfers and need to make sure the payment goes out today. And this could be $50,000, $1 million. We're acquiring a company. This is top secret. please don't contact anyone to go through this. I think a number of you are shaking your head who would go, who would fall for this? $26 billion reported, and it continues to work. And so we see this more and more and more and more. So why am I bringing up business email compromise? Again, this is one of those examples that's absolutely, totally protectable. Remote access, general purpose remote access Trojans that you can go to any script kiddie hacking site for $50. Run that through a cryptor, it's fully undetectable, all of a sudden bypassing the semantics and the McAfees and the trends and the kind of old school endpoint protection. You're totally on the system. This is absolutely trivial with things like Wildfire, with threat prevention, with Cortex, with URL filtering from the delivery of things like that. So if we think about the compromise and being able to deliver, here is a PE file, portable executable file from an uncategorized website, maybe a dynamic DNS domain website. Should my executive be able to download an executable from an unknown website that's out there? A PE file regardless, but uncategorized or dynamic DNS site. So there's multiple different ways that this should be stoppable. There's a number of toolkits out there that exploit RTF vulnerabilities. The one is called the Microsoft Word Intruder, if any of you know that. It exploits about 5 different Microsoft Word vulnerabilities, RTF vulnerabilities from 2010 to 2018, and makes it easy to totally compromise. Again, this is totally a solvable thing using a variety of the tools. And for customers that may say they only have threat prevention or only threat prevention and URL filtering, you're missing a key part of the overall protection. Okay? So read up on business email compromise. There's a number of groups, and it's one of those things that continues, especially impacting where they get access to your systems. You potentially have other problems as well. Let's move on to talk about advanced adversaries. And there's one of the things, if you've taken a look at some of our blogs around the Middle East, there's a number of adversaries that will use a variety of tools and get in there. They've coined this after a variety of different gaming sites out there, but they're actually targeting Kuwaiti sites there, and they use valid DNS commands to be able to communicate and exfiltrate data. And this is one of those things where, again, hopefully with our firewalls you have port 53 and you're not using port-based rules. Hopefully. Again, so you've used App ID to say only DNS communication is allowed. From there, it's being able to say, okay, now I want to see that within the valid DNS, what's going on. And so we introduced our DNS security solution a year ago, and that's one of the things where these were actually the valid DNS requests where the adversary, low and slow, 5 DNS queries over 10 minutes. And we had just rolled out the DNS security solution last year, and this is one of the things where we stopped the adversary in their tracks. We released this blog post, and the adversary had been reusing infrastructure and techniques. What's the number one rule of adversaries? They're lazy. They hate reusing stuff and creating new stuff. They like automation. Let's use the same old techniques and tips. They'd been using this stuff for years and years. And so when we published this blog post, we probably burned down so much of the infrastructure that's out there. And that was really a powerful capability. So take a look at the Axon. Some of you may say, well, am I the target of an advanced adversary or APT? Like, no. That's, again, if you take a look at within DNS, how much communication, 80% of malware uses DNS for that initial lookup for the command and control where you're going to communicate to. And being able to stop it at that initial connection before it, creates an encrypted tunnel that you may not be able to get into because you're not doing SSL decryption, or maybe there's a domain generation algorithm the malware is using, that's where the power of the DNS security comes in. All right, next example, we're almost there. SMB forced authentication. This is one of the things where it's interesting, where how many of you let outbound SMB occur in your environments? No one wants to raise their hand there. How about web dev? Anyway, yeah, I wouldn't. This is an interesting here. If you're familiar with the MITRE ATT&CK framework, this is one of the techniques for forced authentication. So none of you would just normally go, let's go connect to an SMB share, over on Martin's server on his home system. But here, this is where adversaries have figured out how to embed the right commands. And so they'll actually embed an HTML source that goes, I need to grab this PNG file off this website over here, and they'll embed it within an Office document. So all of a sudden, you're opening up an Office document, boom, okay, that's weird. I need to enter my username and password. And so all of a sudden, you'll enter your password with the NTLM credentials, and again, with some of the reverse cracking tools and things like that, all of a sudden the adversary can be able to have access to your username and password. So and even with basic adversaries, but advanced adversaries, the X-Hunt included a tool called Responder. These were actually the commands built into that, and the tool with Responder that's built to establish those SMB connections. So I really love Microsoft because none of us would block SMB necessarily, none of us would allow SMB outside our enterprise. But of course, that's where WebDAV came in, which is just a web version of SMB. And this is one of those things. Take a look at your policies to make sure you're blocking SMB as well as WebDAV outbound connections. Okay, it's again another technique that's out there. If there's a business need, whitelist the IP addresses. But this is one of the ways that the adversaries can then walk their way in with known credentials, be able to get their way in. How many of you allow SMB v1 or v2 within your organizations because you have to? There's some system. If you hadn't heard, SMB v1 is like dead on. So Ned Pyle, who actually created SMB at Microsoft, I'm not sure if any of you saw this, released a post a couple of years ago on Twitter. He's like, please God, for the love of Microsoft and everyone else in the world, stop using SMB. He's created it 20 years ago, and he's begging everyone to stop. But the nice thing with the Palo Alto Networks firewalls, let's say you do have systems that are using SMB v1. What you can do, that's part of the zero trust and segmentation, is be able to create an SMB v1 segment in your network where things can't come in and things can't go out. So that way, if you did get an infection inside, someone who did open up that document, that you don't have ransomware coming in, totally taking advantage of those the SMB v1 systems, things like that. Okay. All right, we're almost there. So luckily, Martin already talked about IoT. To me, that's one of the absolute scariest things impacting our organizations right now. We talk about, patching Windows laptops and patching Linux servers and things like that. Within most organizations, you've got hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of unpatched vulnerable devices within your organization. I'm sitting here looking at this beautiful office environment here, and all the thermostats, the video cameras, controllers. I think part of the vision that Martin shared with where we're going with IoT security is being able to not only understand and identify, but also then segment and prevent those vulnerabilities. So just like you create a firewall rule today to say, I have my application, I have my users, I have my threat inspection, but be able to create a network segment easily and automatically to say between the thermostat controller and the thermostat sensor, that's the only communication that should be allowed. And it shouldn't be yet another product. If you're buying yet another product with another monitor, with another sensor, with another logs and things, then it becomes really challenging. So anyway, hopefully this is one of those things. All right. Last thing, then I'll wrap up. Cloud security. I was going to go through some use cases. One of the things I'd recommend, take a look at our Unit 42 threat report. We just introduced this on cloud security, where a lot of the, again, developers and DevOps are using templates to be able to make code reuse really simple. So this really identified over 200,000 insecure templates. So if you're taking that template, using it here, you're just spreading the vulnerabilities across your organization. 43% of cloud databases not encrypted. Pasha cryptocurrency connecting destined to China. This is one of those simple examples where combination of App ID and together with our cryptocurrency identification to be able to say, my cloud server should not be doing coin mining and connecting to China. Thank you very much. There's a lot of organizations still have wide open SSH on port 22. Again, it went up 20% more since the survey we did 6 months ago. And the same, I think, the team talked, Renee talked about RDP. It's like, why do you need things wide open, especially with the way that Bastion hosts are coming along, the Azure Bastion host, things like that. You don't need it wide open. So take a look at this report, really fantastic. So I will wrap up. A couple things here. Take a look at and really follow our best practices for preventing file-based threats. So it's leveraging file blocking, leveraging threat prevention, wildfire, DNS security. And it's really those all combinations, and so many of those file-based threats can be trivially taken care of. Create a plan for SSL TLS decryption. We've done a lot over the last couple years in really helping you to give you guides 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Kapsch is such a fantastic partner. They will be there with you together with us to be able to get you on your way. Start somewhere. That's one of the things you can actually, one of the things that we have in there is, let's take the example. Should you be able to connect to a website that has expired certificates or self-signed certificates? Not sure. This is a setting within our product. Unfortunately, we put it within the SSL TLS decryption so that people are like, I don't know, I don't want to touch this. And this is one thing that some simple changes that can say, don't allow my users to connect there, what I'd call the bad hygiene websites that you can do in the near term without getting together with the Works Council, with the legal teams. That's more just preventing things. And then involve all the right people. It's building the right team together to roll out. We did some great interviews for how we rolled this out internally at Palo Alto Networks. Is it a trivial thing to do, you're just going to do in a weekend? No, it's one of those things where having the right partner, having the right plan for you to be successful, and then also have a roadmap conversation of some things coming that will make it even easier to do that is crucial. If you haven't seen our credential phishing protection, I talked about some of those things where you get credential phishing attacks are still where the attacker's not hacking their way in. They just get you provide over the username and password. One of the capabilities that we have is absolutely preventing credential phishing attacks. And this is the thing where the firewall can prevent you and your users from posting credentials outside your organization. On top of that, to easily allow and enable multi-factor authentication so that, let's take MSRDP. Does anyone have two-factor authentication set up for MSRDP? Okay, wow, that's pretty cool. Is that easy to do?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, good. Again, each application that the firewall can see, we can easily enable two-factor authentication, whether you're Duo, Okta, Ping. And to me, it's one of the most powerful capabilities of our firewall solution that's been in there since PanOS 8 that our customers, unfortunately, may not have had time because they're reacting to with so many other projects and things in there. And then take a look at, you saw the Prisma Cloud solutions in there. So I'll end there, and we're getting a little closer to beers, but I will take any questions if anyone has any questions there. I think people are ready for beers. You do have beers here for us, right?
Unfortunately not.
What? Oh, okay. Beers on Kapsch, bar across the street. Yeah. All right. Thanks very much for letting me join you today.
John, thank you very much for your sophisticated information. I believe that gives us a global view about threats, and I hope we see you once again. And it's a good idea for our next export forum. We will think about beer and so on.